Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has a lot of really weird red flags, but his biggest one has to do with animals. In 2012, RFK Jr.'s daughter, Kik Kennedy, was quoted in an article published by Town & Country. She talks about a time in her childhood, 3 decades ago, when she went to the beach with her father, and the really upsetting way that he chose to handle the carcass of a whale that they found washed up on the shore. She unfortunately remembers her father using a chainsaw to remove the head of this whale and then strapped the carcass to the roof of their family car. She also described the details of seeing remnants of the whale coming down the sides of the car as they're going down the highway, and how people were honking their horns and flipping them off, and rightfully so. The kids also apparently put things over their head to keep the remnants of the whale from splashing on them and getting on their bodies. If that doesn't make you want to throw up, this probably will. For many years, a photo has floated around the internet of RFK Jr. holding what looked to be a barbecued dog. According to an article, that picture was taken in 2010. Coincidentally, or maybe not so much, that was the same year he was diagnosed with a dead tapeworm in his brain. Now, that photo has been disputed by many people, but RFK Jr. has also made separate statements about the many crazy animals and livestock that he has eaten, including things like a possum, a horse, and a dog. Once upon a time, RFK Jr. dumped a bear cub in Central Park, and he told canceled comedian Rosanne Barr all about it.
I was taking a group of people falconing up in Goshen, New York, up in the Hudson Valley, and I was supposed to meet them there at like maybe 8 or 9. I was driving up maybe, really early, like 7, and that woman in a van in front of me hit a bear and killed it, a young bear. So I pulled over and I picked up the bear and put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear, and it was very good condition, and I was going to put the meat in my refrigerator. And you can do that in New York State. You can get a bear tag for a roadkill bear. And at the end of the dinner, it went late, and I realized I couldn't go home. I had to go to the airport. And the bear was in my car, and I didn't want to leave the bear in the car because that would have been bad. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park, and we'll make it look like he got hit by a bike. It'll be funny for people. So everybody thought, that's a great idea. So we went and did that, and we thought it would be amusing for whoever found it or something.
So according to Kennedy, he threw it in the back of his car because he wanted to eat the roadkill. He forgot he had a flight, and the most logical thing he could think of was to dump it in Central Park. The next day, that 44-pound deceased bear cub was found in Central Park by some poor lady who was walking her dog. I'm not going to post any of the grisly pictures, but they are out there on the internet.
The magazine asked him about a photograph that shows Kennedy posing with the dead bear cub, his fingers inside its bloody mouth, and Kennedy responded, quote, "Maybe that's where I got my brainworm."
It's going to be a bad story.
I think it's a great story.
Head scratcher.
It really is very, very weird.
Anyway, that's the same guy now in charge of all of our healthcare in the United States, so I hope you guys can sleep at night. Recently, before he was confirmed as the new Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr.'s cousin, Caroline Kennedy, wrote a letter to members of the Senate begging them not to confirm him.
Dear Senators, throughout the past year, people have asked for my thoughts about my cousin, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his presidential campaign. I did not comment, not only because I was serving in a government position, but because I have never wanted to speak publicly about my family members and their challenges. But now that Bobby has been nominated by President Trump to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, a position that would put him in charge of the health of the American people, I feel an obligation to speak out.
In her blistering open letter, Caroline Kennedy alleges that her cousin is 100% a predator.
These facts alone should be disqualifying, but he has personal qualities related to this job, which for me pose even greater concern. I've known Bobby my whole life. We grew up together. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator.
She also stated that in his younger college days, RFK Jr. enjoyed showing off by putting things like mice and baby chicks into a blender that he would feed to a pet hawk.
His garage, his dorm room were always the center of the action. where drugs were available, and he enjoyed showing off how he put baby chickens and mice in a blender to feed to his hawks. It was often a perverse scene of despair and violence.
All of this should concern every single one of us.
Overseeing the FDA, the NIH, the CDC is an enormous responsibility and one that Bobby is unqualified to fill. He lacks any relevant government, financial, management, or medical experience. His views on vaccines are dangerous and willfully misinformed.
Many of his beliefs are not only incorrect, they're very harmful. He is a man of radical ideas and diabolical quotes, like saying pesticides lead to kids being transgender, and that it's highly likely that Lyme disease is a bioweapon engineered from the military. He also believes antidepressants are to blame for school shootings, and that Wi-Fi causes cancer and, quote, leaky brains. He's also spent years being incredibly anti-vax, despite the fact that he has vaccinated all of his children.
Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own kids, while building a following hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs.
He is also partially and directly responsible for one of the most deadly outbreaks of measles in Samoa. The outbreak was so deadly that it killed 83 people, mostly children, and it was in recent history.
His constant denigration of our healthcare system and the conspiratorial half-truths he's told, including in connection with Samoa's deadly 2019 outbreak of measles, have cost lives.
Caroline also said,
his ethics report makes clear that he will keep his financial stake in a lawsuit against an HPV vaccine. In other words, Bobby is willing to profit and enrich himself by denying access to a vaccine that can prevent almost all forms of cervical cancer.
He, of course, also believes antidepressants are more addictive than heroin and wants to put people on antidepressants and mental health medications of all kinds into literal labor camps.
Bobby is addicted to attention and power.
If you want to hear more about that terrifying ordeal, you can watch my video about it right here. That's all I have for now, but I think that's plenty. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.
We are a close family, and none of that is easy to say. It also wasn't easy to remain silent last year when Bobby expropriated my father's image and distorted President Kennedy's legacy to advance his own failed presidential campaign, and then groveled to Donald Trump for a job. Bobby continues to grandstand off my father's assassination and that of his own father. It's incomprehensible to me that someone who is willing to exploit their own painful family tragedies for publicity would be put in charge of America's life and death situations. Unlike Bobby, I try not to speak for my father, but I am certain that he and my Uncle Bobby, who gave their lives in public service to our country, would be disgusted. They deserve a secretary committed to advancing cutting-edge medicine to save lives, not to rejecting the advances we have already made. I urge the Senate to reject his nomination.